Welcome back to this course on carbon footprint calculator. Uh, we need to understand in more detail as to how the calculator calculates the carbon footprint from the transport. Carbon calculator receives the input in the form of the mode of transport of the user, whether it is a car travel, whether it is a bike travel, whether the user is traveling by an auto or an electric vehicle. We also saw that the calculator needs information on the distance traveled in kilometers and the number of passengers in that vehicle. And we said that the calculator gives us the output in the form of carbon footprint per capita. Uh, if the emission factor for a particular vehicle is available directly, then the job becomes pretty easy. But many a times we would also need an information on the mileage of the vehicle, and the user generally knows the mileage rather than the emission factor. And it is not possible to include the emission factor of so many vehicles in the calculator. Then the better way is to use the mileage for arriving at the calculations of the emissions, right? What is then necessary is, instead of emission factor from a vehicle, we would require the input in the form of emission factor per liter of fuel. Okay, different fuels would have different emission factors and they are pretty standardized. And if you know the mileage, then by using this formula as to, for example, a carbon footprint for road transport by a diesel car per kilometer would be emission factor per diesel upon the mileage of that diesel car in kilometers per liter, right, into 1000, right. 1000 is because we want to convert everything into kgs of carbon footprint, tons of carbon footprint equivalent, right. So when you get in kgs and if you divide by 1000, the carbon calculator would convert directly the carbon footprint in tons of CO2 equivalent. Emission factor for different fuels are easily available rather than getting the data of different vehicles. This is another way of doing the job, designing the software for the calculator by calculating the carbon footprint using the mileage. As discussed in the earlier lecture, you can directly use the emission factor of the vehicles, different categories of vehicles, but if that is not available, then we must know the mileage of the vehicles and you must know the emission factor of the various categories of fuels, right. So this is how the calculator does the job of calculating the emission factor from transport sector.